The offseason is underway here on Bills by the Numbers, where we let the stats tell you where the Bills are at. We're presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more. We heard Brandon Beane say they wouldn't be major players in free agency, but could the trade market be an avenue to add proven talent? Where could we see the greatest turnover on the roster? And we'll have our one burning question. Let's get it started! Joining us here on Bills by the Numbers, Bills Wall of Famer Steve Tasker, Bills play-by-play man Chris Brown with you. And as we march toward the NFL Combine and free agency, we take a closer look at Buffalo's roster and where it is in need of some change for the better. Naturally, the outcome of the Super Bowl might have some influence on how some are thinking about Buffalo's roster after watching an Eagles defensive line dismantle a shorthanded and suspect Chiefs offensive line. Seems to be a given that the majority of the focus for GM Brandon Beane and his personnel department will be on the defensive side of the ball. As good as the Bills coaching staff is at developing talent and as close as the team appears to be, proven veteran players might be preferred, as we've seen in recent years with one-year deals for players like DeJuan Smoot, Austin Johnson. But knowing Beane said they don't intend to be major players in free agency, Steve, it's hard to think they'll make bigger commitments to higher quality players on the free agent market. Thing number one for these three things this time around is, did Beane's commitment and comment make you feel like their free agent ads are more likely to be of the value variety rather than landing a big fish or two? Free agent market.
Free agent, no, I take him for what I take him at his word. They're going to get more guys like they have in the past, and they're going to get the most out of those guys. That's one of the things the McDermott and his staff have been really, really good at. Every head coach has got detractors and critics and all. That's kind of what they sign up for when they become head coaches. But one thing it's hard to criticize Sean McDermott for is the maximization of his roster.
Yeah.
He gets the most out of the guys that are there. So I think they will continue to lean on that in the free agent market. That doesn't mean they can't trade for somebody like, the conversation around Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati, because those are some guys that seem to be ripe and available depending on the compensation and the financials of the teams involved. That may happen, but in the free agent market, you can look for guys who have been quality players, if not, and probably not star players, but knowing what we know about this coaching staff, like I said, they're going to maximize the guys they get. They're going to get some value out of these guys, and I think that's the key word.
Yeah,
they're going to get more out of these guys than maybe they got, than maybe what people will think at face value, like they did with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. They're the two prime examples of this franchise.
Right, and maybe to help the fan base, it's players of the DeJuan Smoot, Mac Hollins variety that they usually can bring in here for an affordable price and maximize their value on the field. Now, DeJuan Smoot got injured, missed some time. That kind of compromised his impact on the defensive side of the ball. But what Mac Hollins did, I think, is a perfect example of the value free agent that Buffalo signs, and then the return on that investment far exceeds the cost. Sure. I think that's the ideal type of approach Brandon Beane wants to have, fill some of those positional holes with free agent veteran players that they feel fit the Bills' DNA, and then lean on the coaching staff to maximize those players and their respective talents. Thing number two, if the Bills wanted to add a higher-priced free agent or two, Buffalo would need to create some more cap space this offseason. Who do you see as a potential cap casualty to maybe create the space necessary to do that?
Even for releases?
I mean, we saw some last year, and they had to do it. Mitch Morse, they had to wave goodbye to Mitch Morse. Jordan Poyer still had a year on his contract. They had to wave goodbye to him.
You can look at even a guy as prominent and as well as beloved as Matt Milano would be part of that $15 million hit. Mm-hmm. His dead cap would be, I don't know, it might be too much for him. He'd have a big dead cap hit.
Right.
So
they're looking to save because
right.
They're projected $12 million over the projected cap right now, so they have work to do right out of the chute.
That's right. It'd be interesting to see. You think about some of it. even a guy like Taylor Rapp, you'd save a couple of $1 million. But that's, I think, more probably you're going to get guys, certainly like a Mitch Trubisky, a couple of $1 million.
Yep. You have 4 quarterbacks on the roster.
You got 4 quarterbacks on the
is
roster.
the most expensive, and it offers the most savings. It's
yeah.
a business at the end of the day.
Releases, you'll get guys like that. I think we're more talking probably about restructures of the guys who are actually going to be, are going to be like Josh, like Ed Oliver, like, Vaughn, if it's not Von Miller.
I think Dawson Knox is a restructure candidate.
Sure. All these guys, even Dion is a restructure candidate. So you've got more restructure candidates this year than you do guys who are just going to save you money by moving on. Because there's a lot of the guys that they have talked about as their core guys are now, it costs more to cut them than it does to keep them.
Yeah.
To keep them.
I think a cap casualty could be Von Miller. I mean, age 35. You have to look at the players that are long in the tooth and cost a lot. And one of those guys is Von Miller. Now, that's an area where you're also looking to improve your performance, edge rusher. So you better have a plan to fill that void if you're going to move on from Vaughn for the sake of saving money. I think also you have to look at the defensive tackle position. Long in the tooth player who makes a decent amount of money that would represent some measure of cap savings is 34-year-old Daquan Jones. So you have a draft that is riddled with defensive tackle talent. You have to get cheaper labor. You have to save on your cap. Daquan Jones becomes a candidate for that.
Yeah, certainly Vaughn is 8.4 cap savings if you release him. Daquan's only like 1.8. So, but that's still 1.8. There's some hard decisions that have to be made, but for the most part, we're talking restructures more than we are candidates. And
I think there'll be fewer cap casualties this year than we saw last year.
I think they're going to have more just the 1-year deals they signed last year, which was a bunch of them. And I think that's it. I've said it before. Brandon Beane started a trend in the NFL where a lot of, in the free agent market in particular, they're getting guys on 1-year deals. And I think that's become a trend around the NFL. It frees up your cap after the year, and you can pick and choose more discerning guys. You give them a free year to come in and audition for the job, and you get to know them, and you know exactly what they're worth. And if you can get them for that, you're willing to do that after a 1-year deal. And I think they're going to have as much turnover as they did last year, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, just because of their contract situations.
Mm-hmm. Thing number 3, the trade market already has a few big names out there with the likes of Myles Garrett, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel among those who could be moved this offseason. That avenue obviously affords a GM the option of sending a player or two back to ease the salary cap burden of a high-profile player like that. What do you believe is the likelihood that the Bills pursue the trade route to make an addition to the roster this offseason?
Well, they'll pursue it hard, I think. Whether it happens or not is the harder question to answer because there are 30 other teams who will be kicking the tires. Mm-hmm. Everybody will kick the tires on Myles Garrett. They will find out what is going to happen and what it will take to get him out of Cleveland. Same thing with Max Crosby in Vegas. Same thing with Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati, although Hendrickson at the moment seems to be maybe the most likely guy because of the high-profile guys on the offensive side of the ball that they've got that are trying to – T. Higgins, Chase, Jamar Chase, of course, Joe Burrow. Their engine is their offense, a lot like the Buffalo Bills. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Trey Hendrickson going forward because his contract is in a unique situation compared to Myles Garrett and Max Crosby. Yeah. Yes, the Bills will be all in on all those guys, but whether they can make it happen financially and whether the host team of the trade, if you will, can make it happen on their end as well because it's going to be difficult for the Cleveland Browns to move Myles Garrett as much as he wants to.
That's the biggest rub here. They have a $36 million dead cap hit if they move him off the roster. So the difficulty lies initially in the financial impact on the Browns if, in fact, they get to a point where they say, all right, we're going to move him. And then you get into compensation and what that's going to require. But I think we know the history of Brandon Beane. It doesn't matter what avenue he needs to pursue to improve the roster. He's not afraid to make a trade. He's not afraid to make a free agent signing that was unexpected, Von Miller, for example. And, he's not afraid to make a difficult decision in moving someone off the roster for the sake of cap savings to make an upgrade in terms of an addition. So I would expect him to ardently pursue any and all opportunities via the trade market. Bonus part of this discussion, based on what we've kind of laid out here to this point, what do you believe will be the position that experiences the most turnover from this past season to the next season?
Well, I don't know if it's a single position. Safety and corner. I think a defensive secondary is going to see some turnover. I think you're going to have a new starting corner opposite Benford. I don't think Rasul Douglas will be that guy when they line. He may be on the team. I don't know that they'll expect him to be the guy when they line up. Taylor Rapp, DeMar Hamlin.
Was a free agent.
Was a free agent. So there's going to be automatically some guys turning over. Maybe Cole Bishop moves into that spot, but they're going to certainly bring in some competition, probably a veteran guy like they did last year. And as we mentioned on the Daily Show, there's always an inordinate amount of starting safeties on the free agent market. Mm-hmm. People are always looking for that perfect fit, and sometimes it's hard to find, and those guys are out there. So I think that's the corner and safety positions, I think, are one where they're going to see a ton of turnover. And of course, if you want, I think probably the D-line as well. But I think the secondary is the big
Yeah, my pick's defensive tackle. I have a specific position because you only have Ed Oliver and the rookie Carter, Dwayne Carter, as the only guys that I foresee being under contract by the time, we get to the free agent market. Jordan Phillips is a free agent, as we know. Austin Johnson is a free agent, as we know. I think Daquan Jones could be a salary cap casualty. So suddenly the cupboard is very bare there. And I could see the Bills solely refortifying those ranks with draft choices. They could have up to 9 draft picks once the compensatories roll in. And in a draft as deep as we can remember at the defensive tackle position, I could see the Bills drafting 2, maybe even 3 by the time the draft is over, if they in fact have 9 selections after compensatories are awarded. So I could see great turnover at that position from last year to this year. It's just they got very long in the tooth at that position. They have some younger players in Oliver and Carter, but beyond those two, it's pretty limited in terms of youth. And with this draft class, I could see some turnover.
And as we see too, so often, even with Smoot this year and Daquan, guys who get into their early to mid 30s start to be less durable, less available on the field. We saw that with you see it with every position. And so I think, getting younger also has its added benefit there. But you're right, Brownie. I think the front 7 is right down on the ball are going to be a little bit different than they were this year.
Yeah, and look, there's probably a tier 2 or tier 3 free agent that they'll throw into the mix also just for some veteran presence. They always like to have a veteran in every room, as we know. But this defensive tackle draft class, I think, is going to be very instrumental in charting the course for the Bills on the defensive interior this offseason. We spin it over to the numbers game now, where Steve will be quizzed on Bills offseason roster building. Question number 1, Steve. How many trades did the Bills execute last offseason involving players before the draft? So we're not counting any of the draft day trades that they made last offseason. We're only counting player trades that were executed before the draft. How many trades did they make, do you think?
Man, I can't remember any. How many did they do? Like 6?
There were not 6. That's a little high.
There were some, though.
There were some, yes.
I will say 2.
You are correct. You want to take a shot at him?
I can't. I'm guessing. I guessed. But I got it right.
Stephon Diggs to Houston.
Oh, yeah. Now I remember that.
Yeah.
What was the other one?
Ryan Bates to Chicago. Those were your 2 trades.
Wow. Yeah.
Last year. So 2 before the draft.
I forgot about Steph Diggs. Wow.
Question 2. How many confirmed contract restructures did the Bills undertake last offseason?
I will say they did Vaughn. I Did they do Josh too? I don't know. Dion. 5.
You nailed it. They did 5 contract restructures. Von Miller was one. They did, in fact, do Josh last year as well. Also on the restructure list, Rasul Douglas, Dawson Knox, and Connor McGovern. Those were your 5 contract restructures last offseason. Question 3. How many players were signed to 1-year deals by the Bills last offseason before the team got to training camp? You know, you have a roster injury situation. You got to sign a guy to 1-year deal. We're not counting those.
Just to training camp.
Early half of the offseason we're talking here. Right up to training camp. How many players signed to 1-year deals by the Bills last offseason?
I'm going to say between 10 and 14. 10 and 15.
It's even higher.
Is it?
16
Wow.
players signed to 1-year deals.
It's a thing. I've been impressed by their ability to do that and their desire to do it. I think it's a really smart move. I think other teams are starting to take advantage of it as well. You just don't know about some of the guys. And also, let's face it, some guys play better when they know they're playing for another job.
Well, right.
And it's
prove-it
motivating. It's a prove-it deal. And guys really rise up for that. And you get that helps McDermott get the most out of his rosters. So I think you're seeing more of it around the league. But I think the Bills are the guys kind of who started that trend, and they still take advantage of it. So, 16 of them. That's awesome.
Question 4. How many players signed contract extensions last offseason?
Let's say AJ. I guess they probably tack on a number to Josh's, or did 4.
The answer is 3, Steve. You were close. You want to try to take a hand at who?
Does Josh count as an extension?
No, he was a restructure.
Restructure. All right. Let's say, did Vaughn count as an extension because they Okay. Then let's say AJ.
AJ Epinesa?
Yeah.
He re-signed. He didn't sign it.
Oh, that doesn't count?
No, because he was no longer under contract.
Say Taron.
Taron Johnson is correct.
Say David Edwards.
No, he re-signed.
Oh, well, golly.
He was a free agent.
Taylor Rapp. He was re-signed, too.
He was re-signed as
I
a
don't
free
know.
agent.
Tell me.
Deion Dawkins.
Okay.
And Spencer Brown.
Oh,
big contract extension.
Rasul, Dion, and Spencer?
No.
Not Rasul.
Taron, Dion, and Spencer.
Yeah, those guys are going to be here for a minute.
Yeah.
Taron, I mean, maybe he gets longer in the tooth faster
Turns
than the other
30
two
this
guys,
year, I think.
But man, oh man, what a career he has had.
Oh, yeah. He's a dog. Bills fans, get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Just download the app today and play any way you want. Plus, with live betting, you'll get updated odds on games that have already started. Best of all, you get paid your winnings fast. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the Buffalo Bills and proud sponsor of Bills by the Numbers. Time now for our one burning question. The Bills currently have 7 draft picks, a first, 2 2s, 2 4s, and 2 6s. How does the sweet spot of the 2025 draft class between picks 20 and 60, in your mind, best favor the Bills?
Well, the depth of the position they need and the defensive tackle is huge for them. I think you can expect them. They've got, let me see, I've got it here. Right now they've got the 30th, the 56th, and the 62nd. Mm-hmm. 2 of those are going to be defensive linemen, I would say. At least like today in February.
Right, before any free agent acts.
Right. Now, there's some websites, they're going to get some compensatory picks. So they could get up as high as 10 picks in this draft. And they're going to be, and none of them go past the 6th round. So the meat of this draft, where we've seen Brandon Beane grab guys who have really become productive, you got a second, you got 2 2s, 56 and 62. Then you got 4 more picks before the end of the 5th round. Yeah, I'm thinking they're going to get some guys that are going to be really, really surprisingly good in this. I think the way they pick their guys and the maximization they get, you can expect 2 to 3 guys right away to get on the field for this team.
Yeah, and we kind of saw that this past year, with Keon Coleman and Ray Davis. So, Dwayne Carter got on the field early, and then Cole Bishop towards the end of the year. But I think what this draft is going to be known for, is lacking elite blue chip talent. There's only about 8 to 10 of those players in this draft. So if you're drafting 15th, you're kind of hosed this year. So if there was ever a year to draft late in the round, it would seem to be this year because this is more of a meat and potatoes draft, not a escargot and filet mignon draft.
But the thing is, too, they're going to be. There's no blue chippers, but if a guy you get at 56, if the guy you get is at 56 or 62, and he's better than the guy you've got, your money. That's what you got to have. You got to get guys that are better than the guys you've got, and you bring in competition. You're going to sign some free agents. The question is, can you get more production out of that area than you have in the past? And because they're draft picks, they're going to be cheaper, and your cap is going to hurt less because of it. So you're going to get more for less, theoretically, with this draft. And I think that's where this is going to be. You're right. You're going to get a bunch of guys that are going to be good pros and have nice careers, but they're not going to be the all-pro, all-world defensive player of the year like a Myles Garrett or Max Crosby or those kind of jokers. But they're going to be guys whose names the fans of your team are going to know and know well.
Right. And I think with this being a meat and potatoes draft for the most part, knowing the Bills are picking late in the rounds, I think the value is still going to be present for them because there are a lot of scouts around the league who are already saying a pick at 20 and a pick at 60 is going to get virtually the same value because the differentiation from one prospect to another between picks 20 and 60 are negligible in their minds in a lot of cases. So that affords Buffalo, knowing that each team values players differently because they're grading the player for are they a fit for the Bills. The Jets are grading a player, are they a fit for the Jets? The value is going to be very good, even though the Bills are picking very late.
You make to exaggerate to make the point. If the Bills were picking 20th instead of 50th, you might pick the same player in this kind of draft because that's your position. You need it, and that guy you like the guy and better than the teams between 20 and 50.
Yeah.
It's that kind of draft. There's going to be a little bit of that in this draft, and I think it's going to be interesting to see. And I think it's going to be one of those drafts where you're going to see the Mel Kipers and all the guys at the draft going, no, I think he's a reach. This guy's a reach, or that guy's a reach, I can't believe this guy's still on the board. I had him at a high third-round pick or a low second-round pick, and he's still on the board in the fifth round. That kind of stuff's going to be going on in this draft, and you see it a lot. You see it every draft, but you might start seeing it really early in this draft.
I think the other thing, to your point earlier about maybe you don't get a blue-chip, all-world, all-pro player in this draft, you get dependable performers who contribute, I think that could raise the odds of the Bills trying to acquire a blue-chip talent via trade. If you can't get it in the draft this year because blue-chip talent is scarce and you can't find a way up to the top of the board to get one, I think it enhances the likelihood that the Bills try to trade for a player of that ilk.
I think you and I feel the same way. There's no doubt in my mind Brandon Beane's on the phone with all of those guys that we've talked about. Garrett, Crosby, Hendrickson, and some others that we don't know about. They're picking up the phone line and calling because that, in and of itself, 5 days after the Super Bowl is over, people are still talking about how they can make themselves a little bit more like that Philadelphia defense, and it's that front four that is the question. Everybody's talking about that, and the Bills are no different.
Which is an excellent segue, Steve, to our closing figure, which deals with Buffalo's pass pressure on the Chiefs' Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. As we know, the Bills have fallen to Kansas City 4 consecutive times in the postseason. In those 4 matchups, the Bills have a total in those 4 games of 5 sacks and 16 quarterback hits. In Super Bowl 59 alone, the Philadelphia Eagles had 6 sacks and 11 quarterback hits in one game. That's it for this edition. Be sure to subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use so you know when the next episode is ready for you. Because when you need to know about the Bills, you need to check Bills by the numbers. For Steve Tasker, I'm Chris Brown. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time, everybody.